Hello everybody, in this video I'm gonna show you how to make a script that generates dynamic tiles. Here you can see the end result of this tutorial. You can make it with any sprites. To start with, you're going to need a folder that's called must be called resources, and in there you have prefab which is called tile, and it simply needs a sprite renderer with an image of your choice. And you also need, in the scene, you need a tilemap. It doesn't need to be that particular name, you can name it whatever you want. And this is going to be the parent of all the tiles. If I start the game, all the tiles are stored in this game object. And if you make it 2 by 2 now, we have 4 tiles here stored as a child of the parent game object, and the script is stored to the parent. And now let's get to the script. First, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 variables. The tile, which is the game object we are spawning, the particular tile, the height, which is the height of the tile map, and the width, which is the width of the tile map, the space between, which is the space between tiles. First, we need to fill the tile game object variable, and we are loading a resource that's called tile from the resources folder, and is specified with a type of game object. We are simply saying to it that the tile is equal to this game object, which is over here. Then we are calling the function which I created over here. It's called create tiles, and it has 2 for loops, and I'm gonna explain how they work, so you can picture in your mind how it actually works. So we have 2 for loops. You're maybe familiar with how the for loops work, but I'm gonna explain in case you aren't. You're in the for loop, you are creating an integer, you are naming it. For example, here we are it's named it's called W, and you assign some value to it, and it's the W's value is 0. And then if we need some statement, and if that statement is true, the code below will be executed, and if it's executed till completion, then we add to the W. We add 1 to the W. So as long as the W is smaller than width, the code below will be executed. So let's go through the code. I'm gonna pretend I'm the computer and I'm gonna read the code. So we're creating an integer W which is equal to 0, and if that variable which is equal to 0 is smaller than width, which we created over here, is equal to 2, so width is equal to 2, and then add 1 to the W, so W is equal to W plus 1. If that statement is true, then the code below will be executed, which code is for. We are creating an integer again, which is called age, and age is equal to 0, and if age, which is equal to 0, is smaller then height, which is equal to 2, and then h is equal to h plus 1. If that statement is true, the code below will be executed. So the code below simply means that we are saying to the computer, create tile on the x-axis where x is equal to w, which is equal to 0, and y is, and on the y-axis where y is equal to h, which is equal to 0. So if that statement here is true, which is true because 0 is smaller than 2, this code will be executed. So if we imagine the world like this, if this is the y-axis and this here is the x-axis, and here is 0 for both, and 1 and 2, 1, 2. At first, when this line of code is executed for the first time, both both x and y are equal to 0. So the first tile will be created over here on the 0. Then, after this code is executed successfully, we add 1 to the h, and h is now equal to 1. And 1 is still smaller than 2, so we execute this code again, but this time h is equal to 1. So we make h 1, and h is actually equal to y, so the next tile will be created here. It's not that big, they are the same size, but I can paint. So after this line of code is executed successfully, we add one more to the h, and then h is 2. But 2 isn't smaller than 2, so this isn't executed. Then this 4 is fully completed, and we add 1 to the w. W is now 1, and we execute the second 4 again, but this time we start from the beginning, and h is now equal to 0 again, and 0 is more than 2. So here we execute this code again, but this time x is 1 and y is 0. So the next tile will be created over here. After that, after this code is executed successfully, we add one more to the h. So h is now 1. 1 is smaller than 2. So now y is h, where h is 1. So the height is 1, also the width is 1, and the next tile will be created over here. So this line of code is executed successfully. We add one more to the h, and h is now 2. 2 isn't smaller than 2, so this ends. We add 1 to the w, and w gets 2, and 2 isn't smaller than 2, so this ends 2. 2. Then this function is done. So the program can continue from there here. This line of code I will explain in a moment. The space between is actually the size of the tile. So we can see here it's 2 by 2 units over here, 2 by 2. So we are the space between is equal to 2, and if we start, it works, but it isn't in the center. And as you can see, the camera, it's in the bottom left corner of the tile map over here. That's because the tile map, the pivot point to the tile map, is over here, as I said earlier. So here is the pivot point, because here's the start on the 0. As you can see, if we imagine this like this over here, you can see that this tile, we are in the center of this tile, and in the picture it's in the center of this tile. If we want to make the camera be in the center, we have to calculate how much we want to move it that way. That way to the left and down, so the camera is in the center of the tile map. So that line of code calculates the position so it can be in the center, so the tile map can be in the center. So transform that position is the position of the tile map into a thing that it's equal to a new position as a two-dimensional position. That's the x-axis and the y-axis. So it's minus because the numbers that are to the left are -1, -2, and so on. And down on the y-axis are also -1, -2, etc. And that's why we are making it -1, minus width and minus height, but why +1? Because it's actually in the center of the cube. It's not over here on the edge, it's in the center of the cube. So we need to make it on some of the edge of the cube, and because the cube size is 2 by 2, we add it's in the center of the cube, we add the half of it, so it goes to the top right corner. And now, after we add this line of code, it should work perfectly. Let's try it out. You can change the height and the width and the space in between. I will show you after we check if it works. And it works perfectly. It's perfectly centered with the camera. So now if we make this 4, it will be a step of one tile. And that's it for this video. Like and subscribe if you want more, and see you next time.